Hello there my friends, welcome to my another video. Today we're gonna do something very unusual because we are gonna build this tiny ship. This is a German big torpedo boat from Flyhawk in 1 to 72nd scale, 1 to 700 scale, and it's very tiny. Now you see, last time I've built a ship model was around 5 years ago because I was really skeptical about building them since they are big. However, this model is really tiny and I really wanted to give it a try, so join me together as I will build this tiny model, paint it and make a little interesting diorama for it. Now the assembly is very straightforward. This is a simple little kit. However, since it is Flyhawk, the detail is astounding. I absolutely love Flyhawk's models. I've built quite a few of them, didn't record any of them up until now, and I can reassure you there's gonna be more after this one. This is an amazingly detailed model and everything fits together really nicely. You could even buy a detail set for it with photo edge railings and stuff like that, but it wasn't on a local model shop and I was quite skeptical about it because I've never done this before. Or well, I've done it but quite a long time ago. So just enjoy how I assembled this tiny model. A lot of parts were smaller than 1 mm and they were quite fiddly, but thankfully I managed to build it quite nicely. Now with this last part the model is basically finished and we can move on to the painting of this tiny little ship. So what I do first is I mix white with German grey to create a lighter grey that the ship was painted in. It's still a little too dark, but that's alright I suppose. I paint the entire ship using my brush. For this I use my typical technique. I dilute the color very nicely with water, almost to a milk-like consistency, and then I apply it in several thin layers across the entire model until it is painted very nicely, has no brush strokes, and looks almost airbrushed. I painted this ship in 2 steps. First I painted the entire hull and then I painted the superstructure just so I have something to hold on to without making any finger marks. Now after this was done I painted the top decks with dark blue since this is what the instructions say. I would have loved to have a wooden deck on this ship and perhaps in the future I will probably do more ships and those will have wooden decks, but this one just simply didn't and it's quite dark. Now after this was done I went in with my typical obligatory dry brush. I used light grey for this one and I just dry brushed all over the vehicle to pick out all of the tiny details, and there is a lot of them because Flyhawk put a lot of effort into this model. Once this was done, I painted the waterline with deep dark red. Now this is a waterline model, so there is no bottom of the ship, no propellers, no nothing, but there is still a little bit of red sticking out of the water usually, so I paint this part. It's not too hard to do freehand, but if you want you could mask it as well. Then I paint the insides of the lifeboats with deck 10. And I apply a dark grey wash around the entire vehicle that is then normally blended with water. Now that this was done, it was time for some weathering. Now ships get really rusty, so I used light rust from Vallejo Panzer Aces. I didn't dilute this color, I used it straight from the bottle. I got it onto my brush, unloaded it a little bit onto a napkin, and then I made a little some rust streaks all around the hull. And then using Russian uniform, I also made some barnacles and some moss on the break where the water would be on the ship. And with all of this, the ship was done and it was time to paint a lighthouse. This is a lighthouse made by me in Tinkercad. I wanted it quite a lot for this diorama, so I had to model it myself. And now it's time to paint it. I paint it in typical lighthouse colors. First I apply a thicker coat of white, because white is quite hard to layer on, and then I paint on with some red stripes, as you would see on a real lighthouse. Now that that's done, I paint some of the protruding areas and details with black, just to bring some more interest to the overall quite big structure. For the pier, it got a base coat of dark brown. And then a dry brush with deck 10. Then I weathered the lighthouse with different shades of browns, and I went over it with a heavy dark grey wash. After this was done, it was time for the base, so I cut out a little square of styrofoam. I made a generic setup of how I want the things to be on the diorama, and then I started cutting out a hole for the electronics. This is just a very simple and cheap decorative light I found in a local store, and it worked perfectly for this lighthouse. Then for the rocks, I made them using another styrofoam. I just broke it and made a lot of textures by with aluminum foil, and just beating it a little bit just to create that rocky texture. And then I glued them onto the base with PVA glue. Then I also blend the rocks together a little bit with more aluminum foil, just to have the cuts between them a little more natural. Then I covered the entire area where water would be with PVA glue. And I start sticking different pieces of crumbled up foam onto the surface to create waves and the sea. There is really no correct way of doing this. You just crumble piece, and then you glue it on and crumble another one and glue it on until you're happy with the result, or well, basically you have everything covered. And then you cover it with PVA again. Oh, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. I probably should have waited for it to dry a little bit. But you cover it completely, and then you apply another layer of aluminum foil. This one is way more straight and just normal. I try not to crumble it, and then I just try to dab it with an ordinary sponge to make it adhere to the surface a bit better and create the nice sea texture of the waves and everything like that. And with that, it was time for painting, so I primed it with black, and then I started applying different shades of blue to the sea. I started with darker shades, and then I moved my way up to the lighter ones. I applied all of them basically together. All of them are diluted, and I wet blend them together to create a nice water color. Now this was my first time doing a water ever, so I wasn't sure how this would turn out, but I was really happy with the result. Then I dry brushed the entire surface with light blue just to pick out all of the raised waves. And I applied a little bit of green as well, just to bring more color to the sea. Then I blended the rocks together with some more acrylic mud paste, just to make them a little more like realistic and blend together, because there were still edges between them that didn't really look convincing. And then I covered the entire sea with PVA glue. This is to bring that shiny, glossy look to the sea. Now, if I had it, I would have used gloss varnish for this, because it would have looked glossier, but PVA glue is good enough for now, since this is the first time I'm doing this anyway. Then for painting the rocks, I went in with different colors of dry brush. I started out with very dark brown dry brush, and I moved my way up to lighter colors through buff and dark tan, just to make the raised areas lighter. Then I glued on to the lighthouse and the ship. The ship was levitating a little bit because I didn't really think about it at the time. Another thing that I will remember to the next time I will build a model, because that's why you try new stuff, to remember it and then do it better next time. Then I used Viejo acrylic snow. I never thought I would have used it for something like this, but I used it for the foam that would, get created around the shore and around the pier and around the ship and everywhere, and it looked very, very nice. And I'm really, really happy with how this model turned out. Please do let me know in the comments what you think about it. Give me suggestions, tell me what to do better, stuff like that. If you'd like to see me do more ships or different type of models, do subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another upload. If you'd like to support me financially so I could build bigger ships, for example, since they are very, very expensive and I would love to, but I can't really buy them, consider supporting me on Patreon. You will get some bonuses there, mainly 3D files for things like this lighthouse or tanks that you see in some of my videos, and future conversion sets that I am planning. Otherwise, I am really happy that you stick to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it once again. So, like, subscribe, give me a comment, and I will see you next week with something a little closer to Eastern Europe and something again different from my typical tanks. So, thank you for watching. Here's the presentation of the model.